Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Scott Viscomi. I'm the president of Wimp to Warrior North America. Wimp to Warrior is a 20-week MMA training camp. Today, we're going to be talking to my good friend Greg Walsh from Rochester, New York, and other places. Greg is a world-renowned, world-class strength and conditioning coach. Greg has an incredible gym and many affiliates, several affiliates that are very strong with really strong and great people, training a variety of disciplines and mixed martial artists. Everything is really exciting going on in the world right now of martial arts. We're emerging from the darkness, per se. Gyms are opening up. The community is supporting each other, and Wimp to Warrior is a big part of that. For those of you who are not familiar with Wimp to Warrior and may just be jumping into the live feed, what we are is a 20-week MMA training camp. You train Monday through Friday early in the morning at an affiliated MMA gym. And what we do is we bring you from zero experience or condition or strength all the way through being mentally, physically, spiritually proficient enough to have an amateur fight under your state rules. So it's an actual sanctioned fight. We get you ready. We hand you off to the commission. You follow the commission. You get a fighting license. You get blood work. You get eyes done. You get really ready for a fight, and you walk into a cage to your favorite song, and you do it. You do it that one time. So there's probably many of you out there who have been thinking about a fight, who maybe dream and maybe do a little bit of shadow boxing in the shower or the mirror when you're shaving. This is your opportunity. Our average age of participation is well into the 40s, and we are 40% female. I'm very proud to report that. So this program is for you. Part of being involved in the Wimp to Warrior family is getting ready in all facets of the discipline of mixed martial arts. So we train you in boxing, wrestling, strength and conditioning, Jiu-Jitsu, the art of ground fighting, submissions. We give you a wonderful sort of entree into the world of mixed martial arts. And then rapidly, over 20 weeks, you become part of the 1%. You don't need to watch the UFC to have an affinity for the sport. You have become someone who's actually walked into a cage. So with that being said, Greg Walsh is joining us today from Rochester, New York, my very good friend, renowned strength and conditioning coach, and I'm going to invite him into our party right now. If anyone has a question on strength and conditioning for MMA or general fitness, kettlebell, mace lifting, please enter it into the feed. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. With Greg Walsh at Wolf Brigade. Anyone has a question, please let us know. Hey, there he is.
All right.
My brother.
Yeah, how are you?
Good. Good to see you, man.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for everything you've already done for Wimp to Warrior. We need you, man.
Thrilled and long overdue.
Absolutely.
And the only thing I'll add to that excellent introduction is that in addition to what you guys do now, the goal, of course, is a gateway drug to physical culture for an entire lifetime, whether it be continuing to fight, whether it be just pursuing better strength, conditioning, preparedness. But I mean, nothing is singular in the fact that they can start off with such great training and their feet wet with something as awesome as fighting. I couldn't be happier to be a part.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people, surprisingly. And more women are joining and feel great about the experience, and we have great testimonials, and it's amazing. So we've got some really interesting questions for you today. Some straight down the line of strength and conditioning, and some pertaining to MMA strength and conditioning. You've gathered some questions and shared them with me, and I've got some questions from our world. I'm going to scan the feed right now to see if there's any live questions, because those are always fun. I want to say hello to everyone who's joined us. We've got quite a few of you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give you high fives when Greg starts talking. The first question comes from Illy X MMA. After finishing Wimp to Warrior, where would you go to compete? Just a local MMA gym? Well, listen, I'll take this one, Greg, but this is kind of a great question to start, Illy. So what you do is the gym is affiliated with usually a local fight promotion. You and your opponent, who will be in the class that you are matched in terms of skill and weight class and experience safely, you'll probably know them quite well before you get into a cage in your underwear and punch them in the face directly. But you will be safely matched. You will fight either on a local card in a local fight promotion in an MMA cage. Some people do it in-house. They have an in-house fight night, bring in chairs and tables, and it's a party with a fight in the middle of it, which is the best kind of party, in my opinion. So that's it. And then after that, you are prepared to continue on the path, as we like to say. And you may take a road down jiu-jitsu, through strength and conditioning, and so on and so forth. So, Greg, I'm going to now throw it to you with the first question that we got for you. How do you gain strength and mobility for BJJ grappling tournament, jiu-jitsu and grappling tournaments?
So of course, great question. And of course, one of the primary answers is grappling. The secondary answer, of course, is strength and conditioning that both complements and supplements grappling. One thing that I think it's important to land early, and really one of the things that I believe we dissect as well as anyone on earth, is that detail begets detail. And if you're looking for mobility, if you're looking for positional acuteness, if you're looking for power dexterity, transferability, those things can be really skinned in strength and conditioning in ways that I haven't yet seen and that we've been practicing for a long time. So in order to get better movement, you have to move better. You don't just have to move more. And in order for those things to transfer to fight sports, the movement patterns in strength and conditioning and the martial patterns are the same, provided they're addressed the same, provided they're practiced the same. So
you sort of like begin with the end in mind in this sense. You're not training for beach muscles, but someone like you is training these people under protocols that are applicable to the martial way.
Well, I mean, you know, a unique component of my hierarchy of involvement with this stuff is I was banged up because I've ridden BMX bikes since I was a kid. I got into martial arts a little bit before I got into strength and conditioning. And so our strength and conditioning really evolved based on the fact that I saw needs from a recovery standpoint and also a development standpoint within things like action sports and martial arts that just weren't addressed.
Right.
And at our gym in Long Beach, before I moved back here to Rochester, one of the things that we started tinkering with just even early days CrossFit stuff is, yeah, you want to tax yourself in strength and conditioning, but with demanding applications like fighting, especially grappling, kickboxing, and especially combining them together, you have to leave enough in the tank to suitably and efficiently practice those things.
Yeah.
So if your strength and conditioning in and of itself is just this attrition-based smash fest all the time, you're taking away valuable resources from the true task at hand. So the answer to that question is train more, but train better, or train less and train differently. And mobility and strength are earned just like everything else. And they're really findable too, provided you know how to find them. And the maces and the kettlebells, heavy enough to be useful and detailed enough to be progressive, are the best tools we found.
So what I'm understanding from what you're saying essentially is you got to hunt your strength and conditioning in terms of a goal pursuit, much like you'd hunt a stripe on your belt or learning how to throw a punch particularly correctly, right?
Well, one of the biggest confusions I've always found is that people who are so adept and detail-oriented and surgical when it comes to martial arts, all due respect, of course, are very seldom that detailed and surgical when it comes to their strength and conditioning.
It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn too.
Well, but it isn't.
Right.
It's all slices of the same bread, and
okay,
if addressed the same and described the same, narrated the same, practiced the same, the strength and conditioning movements and mindset transfer so seamlessly to fighting, and we've seen that with a lot of our people in such like really remarkable ways. People that had been simply strength and conditioning participants with us that I've had a hand in teaching martial arts or teaching kickboxing or grappling, man, the speed with which they learn and the proficiency with which they apply is shocking even me.
That speaks to mindset, I believe. You know, one thing that I noticed from following you for many years now and knowing you and some of your athletes are now friends of mine and affiliates, right? I've been to 2 different Wolf Brigade affiliates around the world. So you know, there's a mental discipline, and that, and Christopher Goodwin's question to us in preparation for this was, Wolf Brigade people tend to pay attention very well and don't seem to fatigue mentally. How do you accomplish this? Thank you. Now, before I let you get into that answer, this I find is an essential component of adding strength and conditioning in the context of mixed martial arts training. So go.
Well, one, you're 100% right. If the intent is to be choked or punched or kicked or smashed to the floor voluntarily, you have to address that mentally outside of that particular circumstance. Mm-hmm. Detailed application of martial arts is always going to be practiced in martial arts. But of course, the mindset, the movement patterns, the power development, like the power dexterity, which is a super important thing that people sleep on.
Yes, power dexterity. Let's come back to that.
The tensile strength, the idea of moving really uncooperative objects like kettlebells and maces heavy enough to really insulate you for impact. It's something that has to be done properly, and it has to be done strategically. And to address Chris's excellent question, it's practiced in the narratives. You know, the people that train with us, you know, we don't have like a lot of rules in the gym, but there are standards and protocols that people follow. And the reason they follow them is because they see immediate positive response from them.
Right.
If you know, early days CrossFit and then even like modern strength and conditioning, I see a lot of times people will complete a workout and the first thing they will do is despondently lay on their back and start kind of like, you know, begging for hope from the sky. And I think one thing we've always said to people about training in our gym, even before we were able to share this stuff on the internet, is hands off knees, stand up straight. And the explanation that I've always given for that is, if you were going to attack someone, is it going to be the tired, squared away person that is obviously fatigued but standing up and ready for what's next? Or is it going to be the beach muscles guy who's despondently looking at the floor with his hands on his knees? And
yes,
even just that simple sentiment, it speaks such volumes with people that once they practice a little bit of detail and a little bit of composure, they're sold forever, man. And those that are transferring that into something else, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be fighting, whether it be just a really hard physical job that they have to stay composed during, you can't replace it with anything else. And then when you combine when you combine detailed physicality with that type of mental strategy, you're literally talking about martial arts at that point. So
you are a lexicon of underutilized terms in the pure MMA world. I know you straddle several different worlds. You train professional baseball players, professional fighters, professional strength and conditioning athletes, also BMX, pro BMX, elite action sports athletes, and incredible musicians of note. But when you talk about power dexterity and details, you know, these are some of the lexicon, these transference of these concepts to mixed martial arts can often be overlooked, in my opinion, because it is quite overwhelming. It is like you are drowning in detail. You have so much physical homework to do when you're trying to learn how to jiu-jitsu and box and so on and so forth at any one time. So I want to ask you a question from me on behalf of our perhaps newbie participants. So around the world, we have about 3,000 people who are either coming back to Wimp to Warrior training. Maybe they were in week 3 or 4 before this COVID-19 situation hit, unfortunately. Some of them were waiting to go into tryouts, or some of them were waiting to actually start their program. So how do they prepare for this in the sense of, you know, developing the mindset to adhere to details of power dexterity, weight transfer, and getting your ass safely off the ground, as you like to say? Like, what's the best advice you can get them to prepare? I get this question a lot. My global team gets this question a lot.
Yeah, so of course it can be overwhelming if it's looked at as that. But as I mentioned earlier, and as I truly believe, if it's approached in the narrative and it's looked at as all pieces of just building a sound foundation, I mean, construction is it. Martial arts may differ in some ways, maybe in the what, but not in the how. And then I think part of the reason people get tripped up is there's always a differences focus versus similarities focus. And one way we've addressed that in the past is, again, vernacular that people don't have to necessarily worry about, but it's the concept that makes the difference is a variable elimination strategy. We also phrase it as progress assurance strategy.
Variable elimination.
It's just like most of what we do. Unfortunately, it's available for free. But the way we explain it to people is this: we call it the 9-in-1 variable elimination strategy. If 9 things are going well and 1 thing is going poorly, and you have responsible trainers, partners looking after you and things like that, you just isolate those 9 things. You compartmentalize them and leave them alone, and you trust that your body, your current skill set, your brain are just going to autopilot. Single out that 1 thing and you hammer it till it cooperates. And guess what? It will cooperate. And that's how we help people not be overwhelmed while also still making like what a lot of people are considering high-level progress that really we believe is a piece of this foundation. And just to editorialize for a second, I've been watching fighting for a really long time and training for quite a while myself. And I still do not think that we have seen a fully optimized mixed martial arts athlete. Even the ones that are the absolute top of the food chain, because even as incredible as they are, and I say with no misguidedness that they are the most durable athletes in the world, I've been kicked, punched, and choked, and those people are superhuman. But the strength and conditioning and positioning side of things is not optimized yet.
Okay. That's interesting. Now, that's a whole hour we could get into, and probably will. So let's do some housekeeping. Let's catch up. We've got a lot of people that have joined us.
Thank you.
Once again, this is Greg Walsh joining us from Wolf Brigade. He is a world-renowned strength and conditioning expert and martial artist himself. Greg has run a record company. He's been around the block. He's put on punk rock shows. He's had a professional BMX career and a BMX brand. He is an incredible person, and he can do wall rides on a BMX bike, by the way. So allow me to extol more virtue on you. We are Wimp to Warrior, the 20-week MMA training camp for everyday people. You do not have to be in shape. You do not have to have any martial arts experience. But if you got that itch, you want to scratch, you feel like you want to get that fight one time, stop by in UFCs and fight a real MMA fight. You want followers on your Instagram, you millennial crazies? Come do this. So anyway, back to business here, Greg. I got another question here I love this guy's title, and I follow his account actually because he's one of my people. Surf, skate, swing.
Yeah.
Board sports and BMX slams destroy wrists. Yes, they do. What's best martial art and rehab work? What's the best martial art and rehab work to work around these issues?
Yeah, and not for nothing, but so does grappling. So it's an extra relevant question in that respect. Mobility is mobility. If you've smashed your wrists up and they don't go where they're supposed to go, eventually there are certain positions that are going to be a little bit restricted. So in addition to getting as much of the position back as you can, you also need to know how to complement and supplement what you're trying to accomplish. The quick example I'll give is I've broken my right wrist twice. One time I was offered to go on a trip I could not turn down that ended up changing my life, and I took the cast off and went on the BMX trip. Maybe not the best idea I've ever had, but ends up being the best idea I ever had.
Yeah.
So
I have a similar story from surfing. There was a particular swell where the last 6 weeks of the cast were not happening.
No. I mean, there's times when priorities are priorities.
Yeah.
But I can't front rack a barbell. And when I say can't, I do not say that. I've worked as long as I can, and I cannot safely and stably front rack a barbell. Many, many years ago, I knew this. And so I started developing a lot of kettlebell lifting protocols and strategies that would help me lift in the front rack enough weight to be useful while not having to worry about that extension that a barbell front rack requires.
Okay.
So part of the way to get what you need is to make what you need. We have made a lot of it, and of course, we're happy to contribute that as a resource. And the next piece is to think about it when you're moving in positions that tax it. So even something simple like a push-up, when your hands are on the ground and they're in a good position and you've broadened your chest out and put yourself into a plank, you're holding tight, your guts are braced, you can oscillate a lot and start getting a lot of mobility and range of motion recovery just in doing a really hard push-up with some positional adaptations. Another great way to do that is push-ups on a mace. Another great way to do that is push-ups on parallettes or kettlebell handles.
Yes.
Where you can literally turn every single tick on the dial and start recovering shoulder position, start recovering.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. That sounds like it's just good to do in general, whether you're prescribing it for a rehabilitation from a alternative sports injury, or, you know, you just, the oscillation of a kettlebell in a push-up setting. That sounds great.
Well, I mean, we call it positional insulation, and it's
there you go again.
It is no more important anywhere than in martial arts. If someone has the potential to put you in a position that is extremely uncomfortable and very dangerous, and you are immobile and not powerful in that position, well, maybe you just got injured. Maybe you had to tap early to something that wasn't real. And we see that all the time.
Okay.
You know, if you can't get your shoulder across your face and someone puts you in a head and arm choke, that thing is going to sink before it's even sunk.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't fight the hands if you don't have the dexterity.
And one thing I think about, and one thing I pass on to people all the time is, if you have the mental durability to withstand something that you have not positionally built, the mental durability doesn't matter. They have to match at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you're Renzo Gracie, you're willing to get your arm broken. That's fine. But that should not be the goal. And it's avoidable in an awful lot of cases. That particular one, not of course. But the reality of it is, if people practice their positioning with the same martial mindset and martial intent that they practice their grappling, it will transfer so seamlessly, so well.
Thank you. This actually sounds like it's sort of dovetailing well into Miller 46 and 2's question. What are some strength and conditioning holes you see in elite MMA athletes, specifically in heavyweight and light heavyweight? Very good question.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool technical question.
Yeah.
And ultimately, again, just to qualify it, these people are animals. And anyone that we're seeing fight on TV is an animal. None of this is a criticism of them. It's hopefully just, I don't know, a platform to start improving people at every single possible level in fighting, so that fighting can continue to evolve for another 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
One thing that we see in particular is inefficiency in movement, which is leading to pre-fatigue.
Okay, hold on. Inefficiency in movement that's leading to pre-fatigue. Okay. Go.
So it comes back to the fact that you may have the heart and head to do something that either your conditioning or your strength and positioning do not currently allow you to do.
Wow.
That is fixable, and that is important.
I have been there as a 220-pound man, usually.
Well,
wow.
And I'll give another quick example of this. And I'm about 200 pounds now. I weigh in the 180s for the first time in many, many years. But I had some pretty rough luck with injuries. I've been injured a lot. I've been injured pretty seriously. In 2012, I had a spinal fusion. They made a mistake, injured my leg, and I had to take a break from grappling that hurt my heart like almost nothing else ever has.
Yeah.
And I was worried that I was never going to be able to grapple at all, let alone well. And so a lot of my rebuilding process was just obsessing about little shit that I know would go wrong if I let it.
Like?
So if you don't have every aspect of yourself rebuilt when you're injured, force is going to transfer to the weakest link in a really, really profound and dangerous way. So if you're a thread and force transfers wrong, never been injured, you're going to have a lot of insulation there. You're going to have some backup plan there. If you've already been injured, you're climbing back up, you're brand new, and your body doesn't know how to receive the force you're getting. It doesn't know how to process the information it's receiving. You're going to get hurt a lot easier and a lot worse. So a lot of that just ended up being what I developed, kettlebells and maces, some of the protocols we use for training and mobility. But anyway, just quickly back to my point is when I did start grappling again, because my strength and conditioning and the positioning within was so specific and so martial minded and martial oriented, when I went back to striking and when I went back to grappling, I was able to do so at a reasonable level. And then once I had started to recover a little bit more, based on just kind of durability and consistency and some good luck, I've been able to grapple relatively well again. I'm not saying I'm jumping in and winning no-gi worlds, but
Sure.
I can grapple well, and that is relatively unprecedented, man. I mean, you injury in that particular surgery is even more real. Foundational details being the most important thing.
Okay. So, this is very interesting to me. And because, look, let me address this once again. This is Wimp to Warrior. Wimp to Warrior is there's a lot of people on here who are going to fight for the first time or in a fight camp for the first time. So injury is a part of the game. We don't promise you that this will be easy. We promise you that it'll be worth it. You can train safely if you follow your coaches. We prescribe 20 weeks of framework to every affiliate gym. Then we step back. It's called decentralized command. Essentially, we provide a framework, and then we expect these partner gyms to train you proficiently in the interdisciplines in phases. There's 3 phases of the training. Injuries do occur, but they are not usually catastrophic. There's a difference between being injured and being in pain and, just kind of hurt. And we help you work through that. What Greg here is addressing is exactly perfect for most of the jiu-jitsu world. Jiu-jitsu is when you are just focusing solely on jiu-jitsu, it is quite, the propensity for injury is often there. So anyway, some really interesting points there. Let's give a shout out in the live feed. We got a couple live great comments. Scotty Malin says, yes, Greg, best team manager I ever had. What did you manage? What did you manage Scotty on?
Scott was one of the best BMX
we lost you, but
bike riders I've ever managed. I mean, you talk about it.
Okay.
And an excellent grappler too. Scott's a powerhouse and really just he's a grappler and a bike rider and I love that guy. That's so nice.
All right. Well, when I start my podcast, we're going to get into some of those great crossovers because I come from action sports too, everybody. Hey, we got a great question from Peter Christensen, one of our fantastic and one of the most talented up-and-coming fight announcers in the game. Let me tell you something. An acolyte of the great Jimmy Lannon Jr. So this guy's got a voice that's unbelievable. And he works harder to announce your weight, your name, and what you've done than I've seen anyone work on anything. So shout out to Peter Christensen. He asks, Greg, could you share one of your accomplishments you're most proud of in coaching a fighter where they have met, exceeded, or certain goals? I'm going to open that up to an athlete.
Sure. So, well, on the fight side of things, there's a few, and I don't want to make it seem like any are less of a priority than the others because
Sure.
The other thing that's important to note is that we are not primarily a martial arts gym.
Yeah.
I'm an excellent martial arts instructor, but we prioritize strength and conditioning because that is what we needed to do at the time, and that's just how it goes. But we've always trained.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a kid. We had a kid that was from here. Mark Entenberg. He's in Albuquerque now. Fought in Lion Fight. He's fought and won overseas Thailand in Thai boxing. To us, he's just the kindest, strongest minded dude, but his kickboxing was and part of it was just that his strength and conditioning was unspecific, his positioning was unspecific, and he cares right there. So much that when
unspecific is the plague that in our industry is very, very common. Sorry.
So with Mark, when we got him and we started getting him to pay attention to his positioning, we started getting him to think about strength and conditioning and fighting as the same mentally and physically. Man, his talent went right through the roof. His durability was unprecedented. And I mean, he's knocking people out in Thailand and fighting in Lion Fight. It was so impressive to me with his backstory and everything else. we've also trained people up to competition level in Muay Thai in an extremely short time and without being irresponsible. My trainers were phenomenal and intelligent beyond everything else, and would never have bred anyone that would put someone irresponsibly into a fight. So I'm always hyper aware of that stuff. But these people, because they were so well insulated with strength and conditioning, positioning, mindset, they learned the nuances of martial arts in a pace and a proficiency that I don't know that I've ever seen before. So that was a longer answer, but those are the things I'm proud of. As sports in general, do we have a minute to go into that too?
Absolutely. We have all the time we need. As long as you're here with us, we've got a very consistent level of audience. So people seem to be enjoying this content.
So I've been training a professional baseball pitcher remotely for the last 4 or 5 months. And it's really fascinating because the mechanics of pitching and the mechanics of striking are almost exactly the same. So when we think about floor to extremity power transfer, when we think about positional access, when we think about power dexterity, it all seamed up perfectly with training this professional baseball pitcher. He's been in the major leagues for a long, long time. He's a little bit on the older side, but far from done. And in the last 4 or 5 months, with detailed, heavy enough to be useful additions of kettlebell and mace lifting, and making some foundational adjustments to his primary lifts, he has put weight on every single primary lift at a level that most people would not believe if they didn't see it. His positioning and pitching, even like the knee up, which creates the drive down to throw, his increase in range of travel is like 5 to 6 inches.
Wow. And that's got to equate to some incredible increased amounts of velocity and power.
When I saw his initial throws when we first started working together, it's impressive, of course. He's a professional. He's at the top of his game. I see them now, and it's it's violent, man. Like, one of the things he told me that I thought was the most fun is he tells me that his catcher, while they're in like practice mode, prided himself on never gearing up. And the dude is throwing so hard now that this young thoroughbred catcher was like, well, I'm putting gear on, man. And
yeah,
I love it because it's the same concepts. It's you're braced, your mind is hard, you're putting violence of action into every single movement so that you're not wasting any energy, you're not wasting reps, you're not wasting time. It's the simple details that really make a much more thorough big picture. And I mean, they're not overcomplicated, provided you're not overcomplicating them. We train people of absolutely all fitness levels, genders, everything. And in a group setting in our place, they all work the same. Their movements look very similar. Everyone's at a different level in some way, shape, or form. But if training is written right and foundation is built right, any level of people can train and benefit from each other forever.
Okay. Man, that is a great answer. I really appreciate this. This is, we're going really deep. It's funny. I feel like we're almost scratching the surface into getting into method and modality. And something just occurred to me. We've been friends and I've trained under you myself. You've trained me for Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. Some of the best performance I've gotten out of my body. And it's become a lifestyle since we met. But, you seem to use a lot of science, but were you a student of, or did you have an affinity for physics in school? Or you seem there's a lot of physics talk, or does that just happen organically?
So I call it adaptive non-science.
Another in the lexicon of Greg Walsh, ladies and gentlemen. Please get your notebooks out.
The reason I call it that is it's also hilarious that my brain does not compute above basic math.
Okay.
But I am extremely detail oriented, and
you are.
If there is a detail to find, I will prove it on myself, and then I will prove it on others, and then I will do it again, and then I will share it.
Well, you get that from action sports because, as you know, when you're on the ramp with your buddies and you say you're going to do a trick, you have to do it until you land it. You can't go home if your mom's calling. It doesn't matter if you're going to get grounded. You have to land it.
I think that may be the worst advice that I've ever heard.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Yeah, man. So look, let's get into some of the actual, there might be some people here who are getting jacked up to train listening to this. Like
Yeah.
when you prescribed MMA, truly mixed martial arts conditioning programs, what are some of the tools, the actual hardware that you feel are great? Why don't you give us a little preview as to why and what type of rep range? Just go off on a little bit of tangent there as best you can.
So that's too broad to be useful right now, but to make it as brief as possible. You don't need a ton of stuff, but if you want to optimize, you need enough to cover every tick on the dial. A barbell does one thing. A kettlebell does a handful of other things. A mace does a handful of other things. A dog does not replace a cat. Your shoe does not replace your pants. An apple does not replace an omelet. So if you can learn to optimize all the tools at your disposal, then you will begin to optimize your performance. A barbell is going to be much better for overall pure strength. A kettlebell is going to be better for something like power dexterity. The rep range can be higher. And although there's a lot of technical nuance to most kettlebell lifting, it's not going to be the same either demand or risk as something like full barbell cleans or barbell snatches or something like that. The mace is different entirely because it's mostly lateral, whereas most of the other stuff is linear. There's some linear and lateral stuff with kettlebells, that's for sure. But the mace is unique because it is the most uncooperative and also pound for pound the lightest. So the value of all of that too is if all you're doing is lifting gigantic barbells or baby rattle weight maces or kettlebells, you're missing an entire middle range. You're probably getting too beat up, and you're also not getting quite strong, powerful, and I guess like well insulated.
Wow, that is incredible. So you're saying basically you're not really doing what you need to for an MMA in the context of an MMA or a combative sport. That's why you're prescribing mace training, specific mace training, because it's actually getting to the details of power transference and dexterity that you need for a martial setting.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about relative weight. So you can do a lot more reps and a lot more practice with something like a mace, which is very, very heavy and extremely uncooperative, but is pound for pound lighter. 36 pounds, even on the end of a 3-foot handle, is not going to beat you up like 225 or 250 pounds. A 100-pound kettlebell, while it's going to be extremely challenging to maneuver and very valuable, is not going to beat you up in the same way that heavy barbell deadlifts are going to. Yeah. So there's a value to all of it. I believe that we've complemented and supplemented all the tools together in a more unique way, in a more effective way than anyone I've ever seen. And that's just based on tinkering for years and years and years.
Yeah, I'm going to step on a point. Aaron Nardi has said, well insulated. It's a nice way to put it. I agree, Aaron. And, Greg, it's something you talk about, insulation. Keeping our Wimp to Warrior participants, our warriors, safe through the 20-week training program, because you guys are training 5 days a week, 6 to 7:30 in the morning before work. You are winning the day before your enemy, the rest of the world, even wakes up and they're still got sleepy seeds in their eyes. You guys are kicking ass and taking names. You're pushing yourself beyond barriers. But when you go from zero to training safely, albeit safely, and in a controlled manner alongside a master's level curriculum of prescribed exercises, insulation of bodies and keeping people safe is something that Wimp to Warrior is passionate and focused on, because these people are our customers and we want them to have an experience. It's not like going on a fun run and running under some barbed wire and lighting your hair on fire and having some fun. Woohoo! Well, this is like we're getting you ready to go into a fight against someone your weight, your size, your height,
your skill level. And so the only thing that's going to help you is having a well-insulated, well-conditioned body. So,
I mean, a pretty sound point could be made that in a truncated time like 20 weeks, where you're going to be learning a lot, practicing a lot, still adjusting your diet, still adjusting a lot of other protocols, how you build your foundation and durability and insulation may be the most important aspect of the entire thing.
yeah.
You know, most people that have ever competed at any sort of level of martial arts know that at the very base levels, your strength and conditioning can be more of a tool than your actual tools.
Yes.
If everyone's skill set is relatively basic at that time, your ability to focus your mind, brace your midline, breathe properly, and go hard are possibly your strongest attributes.
You also talk a lot about bracing your midline, which I think, again, is just having trained for 13 years myself, like that's just kind of, we go right past.
Well, the thing is, it feels strong until someone actually puts demands on it that shows that it isn't.
Mm.
And the same way that we see people here, like for example, the pro baseball guy. I mean, I had him folded right up doing stuff that he thought he would be able to do with no problem, and that is an animal out there.
Yeah.
And it is just, you know, if you can do 500 of a sit-up, it is not an effective sit-up. You know,
yeah.
if you can do something for 40 straight minutes, it is not effective for building short duration power, dexterity, and power for something like martial arts.
Right. Right.
And just before I forget, for Aaron Nardi, so he's a BMX guy that's also a strength and conditioning guy, and also an incredible videographer. So if you guys ever get into hot water there,
Aaron,
sure Aaron would
hit me up, brother. Isn't he a hardcore guy too? Is he a hardcore guy? I can't hear you. Oh, you went dead. Okay, yeah, good time for a break.
You broke up
You
for
coming
a
back?
second.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. All right, well, we'll get back to Aaron. Oh, Aaron trained MMA for years. Once again, insulation. I love that one, he says. Thank you, Red Forest Chinese Boxing. So I'm getting some questions here from Peter. I see a variety of tools I see how a variety of tools is fantastic. Trying to see if there's a distinct benefit of kettlebells over dumbbells and vice versa. So let's fix this question and say again, in the context of you are training for you're in an MMA camp, you are training your body for the ultimate test, a fight after 20 weeks of preparation.
Yeah, if you have access to corresponding weight dumbbells and kettlebells, kettlebells are a better choice. I love dumbbells. They're valuable for an awful lot of stuff. And from a pure strength standpoint, there could be an argument made that dumbbells are better for some things, but I throw nothing out with the bathwater. And anything that we have done, we have tried with both. And if it would be better with dumbbells, we would do it with dumbbells. An often misguided notion is that we are a kettlebell gym or a mace gym or something like that. And it just isn't the case, in the same way that we're not a barbell gym. If we were given one tool and forced to train people with only that, we would do so, and we would do so as well as anyone in the world. But the fact that we have more than one tool at our disposal simply means that we can skin a better cat. We can build a better mousetrap. So
right. That's great. Okay, well, listen, it's been about 40 minutes. This has been absolutely fantastic. Look, do a little bit of housekeeping. So
okay.
Just so everyone knows, if anyone following from the Rochester, the greater Rochester area, Greg and I are in talks to potentially land a Wimp to Warrior program there at his gym, Wolf Brigade. So that would be great. The first one ever to run in upstate New York. I think that would be very special. So we'll keep you posted. Follow our socials. If everyone's here, we still have quite a few consistent followers. Please be sure to follow at Wolf Brigade. And there are a few other Atlantic Avenue Athletic Club up in Toronto, if you're up in Toronto. Feral Strength and Conditioning, if you're in Humboldt, California, Northern California. Are there anyone else that you want to shout out, gyms that...
We have a lot of people helping us in a lot of places, and I don't want to forget any, so I'm not going to rattle any more off. But the people that are contributing to what we do are very visible and easily findable. And I mean, or we can can it and do it again. And
yeah, you know what? I think, look, strength and conditioning, like you said it. We've all watched a UFC, a Bellator, a PFL, a local fight where you got two great fighters and they have the best 30 seconds you've ever seen in your life, and then the strength and conditioning fades and someone either loses or they both stand there and they mess up. So I think that we have a truncated, I love your word, for a guy that's not so smart. You got a lot of big words. So we're going to talk strength conditioning semi-regularly. We'll figure out the schedule. We'll keep you all posted.
Okay.
But I think we're going to get into this and we're going to get into the details. Maybe Greg would demonstrate some mace movements, some kettlebell movements that are relevant live from, perhaps I see you're at home, maybe at your gym someday. Maybe we'll start doing this weekly if Greg can.
Yeah. I think that'll be fun. I'm happy to do it at the gym. And one thing I'll pitch, and it isn't really a pitch because it's free, but our movement lab, almost 150 simple, detailed demonstrations. There's little bullet points. We just want to help people move better, and we know through a lot of experience that we can. And so
yeah.
please take a look and think.
I can tell you all that there were many days, many mornings that I would call Greg when I was in training camp for my fight, and I would call Greg and he would say, do this. And I got off the phone and I was like, God, I just asked him so many questions. I would go to YouTube and go, what did he just say? Oh, okay, do this. So, please go and follow Wolf Brigade through all their social channels, wolfbrigade.com. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Greg, thank you so much for sharing this information. We're getting a ton of positive feedback, more than we do even with, people who have, quite a big name and following. So clearly this was a smashing success. Appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone else for contributing, making this what it was. We'll be back. WimpToWarrior.com. Look for your local fight club. Ask them if they're going to have a Wimp to Warrior fight program coming in. Reach out to me at Scott Viscomi on Instagram, or just come right through this one, Wimp to Warrior. Thank you, everybody worldwide that's joined us. We'll be in touch. And you guys stay safe, stay strong, stay hard. Let's go. Let's go. We're going to come back out of this, all of us together as one. All right?
Thanks, guys. This will be available after we get done talking. Pass it on.
Yes, sir.
Help.
All right, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.